everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast. I'm Gooey, joined as always by my teammate, McKenna.
Hello.
My teammate, both on the rink. Is that what they call it?
Yeah, you can say rink. Yeah, you can say rink. On the ice, in the rink, in the arena, whatever you want. Yeah.
Out on the field, and my teammate in life. We've got a great episode today. A lot of first times today. Our first sequel of sorts episode where we're actually covering a follow-up to a previous game we've already covered. And we've also got a brand new first-time guest on the show. Comedian and podcaster, host of a bunch of great shows. Block Party, the PODcast, What is a Jeopardy podcast. We are joined by John Cullen. Hey, John.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be on the show. Feel happy that the Canadian stereotype was followed through on. You're like, oh, we're doing a hockey episode. Let's get the Canadian guy on here. Well, thrilled to be here.
It's funny you say that because we were just telling you about our good buddy Andy who lives in Calgary. And last year when we covered the first Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey, I just was like, hey, you might know this game, right? And he's like, yep, I've got a story about it. So he came on the show.
Yeah. That's very, that's how we roll around here. We're just, I'm sure you talked about it with the first game. I'm sure we'll get into it, but for several years, the only hockey game on Nintendo 64 was Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey. So I feel like that is also adding to, like, most Canadians have played it, because if you had an N64 and you wanted to play a hockey game, you had to play Wayne Gretzky. So I feel like even more so than usual, it has a home in most Canadians of a certain age. It has a home in their heart because that was all we had if we wanted to play a hockey game.
Yeah, that's the only hockey we've done so far, and we've got some more coming in the year in 1998. So looking forward to trying out different ones, especially after this episode where, well, we'll talk about it with the game, but it was kind of the same game as the previous year. But so yeah, John, for our first time guests, we always like to ask, like, what's your history? What's your background with the Nintendo 64?
A huge system for me. Massive system for me. I was always a Nintendo guy, for a long time. Like I refused to own the PlayStation 1 or 2. And so I was like, I had Nintendo. My parents, so I was born in 85. And my parents bought me an NES in 1990. And then, so I became a pretty big gamer on that. And then I remember if I got straight A's, they would buy me a Super Nintendo. So I don't know if it was like 92 or 93 or whenever. It was shortly after the Super Nintendo came out, but I got straight A's. So I got a Super Nintendo for my school gift. And then N64, I believe, was a Christmas gift. And it was probably about a year after the N64 came out. And then I was GameCube. I've owned every Nintendo system ever, like console, including the Wii U.
We both have as well.
Love it. I mean, my hottest take is that Breath of the Wild is better on Wii U than it is on Switch. That's like my piping hot take that people love to argue with me about, but it's true, because cooking is the worst part of Breath of the Wild, and it's so much easier to do when you have the pause screen on the tablet. You can do it way quicker, and your weapons break, and it's way easier to switch weapons on the tablet when you're playing on the tablet. So anyway, N64, big system for me. I was like, 12, 13, 14, like around when it came out. GoldenEye was like a monumental game for me and my friends. Like literally changed the equation of video games for us. Like we were obsessed with it. And then, yeah, I was just a big Nintendo guy. So N64, huge system for me. I owned Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey 98. I emulated it for this show, but I do have a copy of it and my N64 in my basement. So I could have just played it on that if I wanted to. And then FIFA games were also a huge part of my life, but not so much on N64, but I can definitely remember playing Road to the World Cup as well. But yeah, N64, big system in the history of my life, I would say.
So were you guys really competitive with like GoldenEye? Did you do the cardboard?
Oh yeah. No, we didn't do that. Okay. We didn't go crazy with that. But so my GoldenEye story, and I know you guys have done like 40 episodes on GoldenEye, so we don't have to make this podcast a GoldenEye episode.
We can do
it
a little bit. It's fine. Yeah.
But so this is a true story, and it actually ties into Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey 98. So it was my birthday, and what was the sort of, I had like a pretty tight group of about 5 or 6 friends, and I went to a gifted school. So the school district I grew up in, if you were a gifted student, it was like a magnet school. So everybody from the district would go to this one school. So me and my friends actually did not live close together. Like a lot of my best friends lived like 15 or 20 minutes away, like by car. And so our main thing for birthdays was everybody would just have a sleepover. You just would have a sleepover, and because that was an excuse to like, well, if I got to drive 15 minutes to their house, I might as well let my kid stay there or whatever. So for it must have been my 12th birthday, 97. That's when GoldenEye came out, right? 97?
Yeah, in like the summer 97.
Perfect. Yeah. So it was October 97, and I rented an N64 for my birthday. So I didn't own one yet. I probably would have got it for Christmas of 97 is my guess, but I didn't own one yet. And GoldenEye had just come out, and it was, this is obviously pre-internet days, whatever. So you would hear like little chatter about GoldenEye and people loving it, but no one really exactly knew what it was. And then, so for my birthday, I got the N64 and I rented GoldenEye. I rented WWF Warzone, and I rented, I think that's what it was called. The first one was called Warzone, I think, and Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey 98. So I just figured that, we would rotate these games all night. This is how we would do it with my buddies. The first time we decided to play GoldenEye first. We played that multiplayer, and it was just like, fuck the other 2 games. We are playing GoldenEye all night. Yeah. This is the craziest thing any of us have ever done before. We were so obsessed with it. And then, like literally for a year and a half, every sleepover birthday party was just playing GoldenEye from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., going to sleep for 3 hours, and then playing GoldenEye from 8 a.m. until our parents picked us up. We got so obsessed with it. But it was funny that I rented Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey, and I can remember being like, I was obsessed with hockey, still am. And I was like, come on, boys, we got to get Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey fired up. And then we'd play it for like 5 minutes. And then it was like, okay, let's get GoldenEye back in the system. But yeah, so that's that game really became a huge part of like my friend group's life. In a big way, in a way that like no video game before or since was so like a core of like a friend group that I had.
That's like the most classic N64 GoldenEye memory someone could have. That's text like storybook memory there.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of us that had that, and I can always remember we had a rule that like one of the people at the do you guys have Colonels in America?
Colonels?
So it's okay, it's like a mall food court popcorn store.
Do you know that?
So
no. Okay.
No. Okay. So it's like but it is a Canada. It's very common in malls, and they have all these different kinds of popcorn. So you like go and they pop it all there, and then they have like different seasonings, different whatever. And there's one, I don't even know what it's called anymore, but like back in the day, it was called like, I don't know, Planet Kid or something, and it was candy coated popcorn. And the rule was that one person for the person's birthday had to buy a bucket of this candy coated popcorn, and that was like your present because it was like $20. It was like a massive bucket of popcorn, and then someone would show up and be like, John, this is your birthday present from me. And it was this giant bucket, and we would all just eat it all night. So candy coated popcorn from Colonels and GoldenEye was our sleepover. That was set for, like I said, probably 18 months or so of my life.
What a setup!
That perfectly kind of sets us in the time, because the other thing we like to do on the show before we get into the games is talk about what was like going on, pop culture and stuff at the time. And I don't actually have a lot of new stuff for this one, because the game, I think it's FIFA, came out December 3rd, 1997, and our last episode on Wheel of Fortune and WCW versus NWO World Tour, those games both came out the day before, December 2nd. So
nice.
We're traveling a snail's pace through this library. But I have a little bit of what was going on December 3rd. First of all, I guess we got to do a correction, because the chart we looked at for Bomberman 64 had that game coming out on Thanksgiving, and then it apparently actually came out the same day as FIFA. I don't know. Do you have any Bomberman 64 history? Were you playing this at the time as well, or?
So the Bomberman stories that I have are actually related to Bomberman for Super Nintendo, because maybe similar to GoldenEye, we used to rent the multi-tap for Bomberman for Super Nintendo, so you could have 4 controllers and you could play Bomberman for Super Nintendo. So that was also a sleepover game in my world, because when you are 10 years old and you have a system that you can plug 4 controllers into, that is some mind-blowing stuff.
Oh yeah.
That was not possible. And now all of a sudden, because the multi-tap came out, but there weren't many games that made use of it. But Bomberman was the perfect game to make use of it. So my Bomberman history is weird. I think it's Super Bomberman that's on Super Nintendo. Played that with the multi-tap. Bomberman 64, kind of a skip. GoldenEye was too good. We didn't. And Mario Kart too. We'd play 4-way Mario Kart, 4-way GoldenEye. Bomberman got a bit of a skip. But then on GameCube, there was a Bomberman game on GameCube. I don't remember what it was called, but that came back into my friend group heavy. My curling team, actually, how Canadian can I get? But my curling team, we used to bring my GameCube on the road, and we would play 4-player Bomberman on the GameCube.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I can see Bomberman 64, actually, it translates pretty well to the Nintendo 64. But yeah, I could definitely see, like, if that's your, like, 5th choice for a multiplayer game.
Yeah,
I could see that.
I mean, I love Bomberman. Is Bomberman 64 the one that has the like open world, like single player mode, or is that a different one?
Yeah. Well, it's a bit more like, it has like those stages that are like somewhat open world type stages. Yeah. So you could have been playing that at the same time as Wayne Gretzky's 3D hockey, but okay. So
very possible.
Yeah.
Okay, December 3rd. 1997. We've had actually some people like tire of us bringing up "Candle in the Wind," which was the number 1 song for.
Yeah, I think it was the longest running number 1 ever for a while, wasn't it? And that it was in the Convo. I think I know it's the best selling single.
There, yeah.
It's the best selling single of all time. I think the single itself sold like 30 million plus copies. I believe. I think it's the best selling single of all time. Yeah.
At this point, it's in its 9th week at number 1.
I think it goes 13. I want maybe 13 or 14. Maybe it doesn't pass One Sweet Day, because One Sweet Day had the record forever. The Mariah Carey Boys to Men.
Okay.
And I know you're shining down on me from
it's a little
heaven.
Sample.
Yeah, that's the one.
For how much longer we have, I'm sorry, people strap in. That's going to be the number 1 song. I actually got some, to change it up, because I know people were tired of it. I got some stats from the RPM Canadian charts.
Oh, baby, let's go. And I hope there's some bands on here that are like really Canadian. Like, do we have some like Econoline Crush on there, or, stuff like that? I should
have pulled more. I only pulled the number 1, which
that's okay.
I'm really excited about this, because it's another song we've been tracking because we just love this song. And it's only gotten to number 6 on the Billboard charts, but the number 1 song is Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba, and it's been at number 1 for 10 weeks.
Oh, we loved it up here.
Yeah, apparently more than Candle in the Wind. So
we're big on like anarcho punk, UK bands that live in a commune together in Canada. That really hits with us. So,
well, I'm happy. I'm like that's a way better choice, I think. Than I'm over Candle in the Wind myself a little bit, but
I think Tub Thumping gets to number 1 in the States, though. I think.
I really hope so, because I think
it does.
We're gonna have to talk more about that. We're gonna have to do something about that at some point. But okay, so in America, number 1 album, we mentioned this, was Reload by Metallica. Where Canada, the number 1 album was Come On Over by Shania Twain. So
checks out.
Yeah, supporting
Checks
your
out.
own. I appreciate that. I didn't pull the number 1 movie for some reason, but here it was, again, we're still in the same week. It was Flubber.
Oh, that sounds like it could have been number 1 in Canada too. I would imagine our box office mirrors yours more than our music charts would mirror yours, because I don't know if you've had a lot of Canadian guests on the show, if this has ever been explained before, but do you know about like the CRTC regulations?
Oh, I think I've heard about that on the POD cast. I think you
Yeah,
mentioned it.
yeah. So
but yeah, go ahead and explain that.
Yeah, sure. So like, because I feel like a lot of Americans are always fascinated to learn this, but so CRTC is the Canadian Radio and Telecommunications Council. And there's a rule that if you are a Canadian television network or a Canadian radio station, a certain percentage of your programming has to be Canadian. So that's why our charts kind of look a little bit different. Like we have artists, like Econoline Crush or Wide Mouth Mason or bands like that you would have never heard of, but were like genuinely quite big in Canada. And then what happens is if there is a song that is legitimately a popular song, like in America, like Shania Twain, if you have a Shania Twain or an Avril Lavigne or a Nickelback or whatever, boy howdy is that song getting played as much as humanly possible, because they go, wow, we have the opportunity to play an actual hit and not some like piece of garbage Canadian, low rent song. So that is not surprising. Like, so that's why our music charts do tend to look a little bit different because of those regulations. So like, it would not surprise me if that Shania Twain album was number 1 for many, many weeks.
Oh yeah, I mean it was also very popular here. I'm pretty sure it's been at number 1 before, and like so many, I believe that had a long lifespan of singles. That is like many over like the course of years. Yeah,
it's one of the best-selling albums ever. I think it's also a 30+ million album. Damn. That one. So, but yeah, so you're totally right. Like if it was getting played a lot in the States and it was by a Canadian, it was getting played even more here.
That explains a lot, because like I mentioned, shout out to Andy. I guess we'll just keep mentioning him, but he's always bringing up like bands, albums, and songs that he's like, oh, you don't know this? This was like massive here, and I'm like, you expect a little bit of that, but yeah, I get that a lot from him, of just like random Canadian bands. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of a good rule. I don't know, like I like it because of that. I mean, I feel like you hear about just so much more, even here, like bands there get more exposure, and it eventually comes over here a little bit.
Yeah, totally. It's funny when you like Chicago would be different, but like I know for people who grew up in border towns or like closer, like I have friends that live in Detroit, or if you grew up in Minnesota, you might actually have a little more exposure to Canadian artists, because those radio stations would cross over, or you might even get Canadian radio stations in Detroit or wherever, like getting it from Windsor, or whatever the case. So, so there are some Americans who will be like, oh yeah, I know that band because I lived close to the border. But yeah, Chicago, I think, is far enough that you're probably not engaging in Canadian pop culture.
That's so cool. Yeah. I was never close to anything like that. The closest thing I can think of is that I grew up close enough to the border of Iowa that all our TV shows and radio were about local Iowa news instead of where I grew up. So,
nice.
Pretty much the same thing, actually.
Hi, I'm Wayne Gretzky, and I'm here filming my 3D Wayne Gretzky 98 video game.
Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey 98 is an ice hockey game and sequel to Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey. It shares many features with its predecessor, including a faster-paced, more violent arcade mode and a more realistic simulation mode. but boasts improved, more challenging AI. You can play a single game with up to 4 players or a full season as a single player. In an arcade season, you'll take on every team until you've defeated them all, replaying teams you've lost to until you're victorious. In a regular season, you'll play 82 games and then move to the playoffs if you have a good enough record, where you'll play against teams in your bracket. There's also a records option, which allows you to view stats from Wayne Gretzky, team stats, and high scores.
I'm glad they brought the Gretzky stats back. Very, very powerful.
Gotta update, yeah.
So we established our last Wayne Gretzky episode. Neither of us have been hockey fans growing up or anything. John, you mentioned you're still a big hockey fan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Who do you root for? Who's your team?
I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs. I was born in Southern Ontario, so been a lifelong Leafs fan. Even though didn't spend I moved to Vancouver when I was 13, and I lived in Vancouver till a year and a half ago, and then I moved to Calgary. But yeah, diehard Leafs fan. And I will say also, Wayne Gretzky, Canada's out. We're out on Wayne Gretzky. We're done with him.
Really? What happened?
He's a big Trump guy, so we're
Oh,
out.
Really? I had no idea.
Oh yeah, he's a bum. We're out on him. If you can imagine this, you maybe have heard of this because it is in sort of the zeitgeist. Wayne Gretzky has many NHL records, but he has the record for most goals scored in a career. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people thought that was a record that could never be broken. And Alex Ovechkin is on the brink of breaking it. I believe
let's go.
Like 8 or 9 goals behind Gretzky, and all of Canada currently is cheering for a Russian man to overthrow Wayne Gretzky and become the greatest goal scorer of all time. So yeah, we're big time out on him. We do not like Gretzky at the moment.
Okay, Gretzky, it's just you and me. Let's see what you got.
I'm glad you told us. We're out on him now too.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy. Well, then we can trash this game a little bit too.
You can
blame
trash
him
it for sure.
But no, okay, well, it seems like a lot of politics being expressed through hockey right now, which is cool.
True. Well, that was part of it because so he was photographed at like Trump's inauguration party at Mar-a-Lago wearing like a Make America Great Again hat or whatever. And then when the Four Nations face-off, the final happened, Wayne was like the honorary captain for Canada. The honorary captain for America was Mike Irizoni, who scored the winning goal in the Miracle on Ice. So he comes out wearing like a Team USA jersey and he's all like pumping up the crowd. Wayne Gretzky comes out in a suit with no Canadian anything, not even like little pin, nothing. And so people were kind of mad about that. And then it was really weird because his wife, Janet, posted this thing about how people were starting to turn on Gretzky for all of this stuff. And then his wife was like, oh, we got this really nice, like Wayne is such a proud Canadian and he can't believe all these things people are saying about him. And Bobby Orr sent us this really nice, Bobby Orr is like a legendary Canadian hockey player as well. She's like, Bobby Orr sent us this beautiful letter about like Wayne and she just like posted it to social media. Bobby Orr in 2016 took it a full page ad telling people to vote for Donald Trump. Like in a paper that I can't remember wherever he lives. I think he lives in Florida or something.
Right.
Took out a full page ad being like, Donald Trump's the best guy. You got to vote for him, blah, blah, blah. So it was like, okay, so the other like famous hockey Trump guy is now like, that's the wrong message. You don't want to post the letter from Bobby Orr being like, so anyway.
Yeah.
We don't like Wayne. We're out.
I wish they still had fights in this game so I could bitch slap Wayne. I'm gonna make Wayne Gretzky's head bleed.
Okay, we can trash on this game, but actually, so I mean, it's the main issue, and it's been talked about is we played Wayne Gretzky 3D hockey from 1990 or the previous year from 96, I think it came out. But yeah, anyway, this is basically the same game as that game, like. You played them literally.
Yeah, I just played them.
Now.
I played one in each back to back, and I was like, I could not tell you any like significant differences between the two.
There might, probably subtly there's some, but
maybe a little harder to get a goal.
Yeah, it might be a little tougher, but yeah, I mean, it's weird though because it's hard. It makes it hard to. I'm glad like here we don't have to like fully like evaluate it in that way, but it's like I really enjoyed the first game a lot, so it's like it's the same game that I already enjoyed. Like yeah, I understand in that time. That would probably be more upsetting than it is right now. Like it doesn't really matter to me in the year 2025. I've mentioned this before because we're buying a lot of these games that are really cheap now where you can emulate them and whatever. But yeah, I could see at the time it being a little disappointing. John, you played these games, right? Was that a thing you remember? Like these games being similar or anything?
I don't really remember there being a big deal about the two games. Like I think that like, I don't know. I just feel like 98 came out so quickly. Like, cause a lot of people it wasn't like now where the Switch comes out or the Wii comes out and everybody's trying to buy it, or PS5, everybody's trying to buy it on launch day. And you're just scrapping for like any game you can get. Like the N64 and stuff back in those days, it was expensive, and people didn't buy it right away. Like I mean, adults maybe did, but we were kids, right? Like I said, I didn't get it until a year after it came out. Most people I knew it was like that, right? Like Nintendo always used to run the thing where they would put it out before Christmas, and then the first Christmas it was really expensive, and then the second Christmas they would usually price drop it, or you'd get a game included with it or whatever the case. And so I think that's when I got it. And so by the time I got it, like 98 was already out. So I'm not even sure if I was aware that there was like an earlier game. I do remember though, and you guys will have to play this one too, there is a Nagano Olympics reskinning of this game as well. And it is basically the same game with the same not real jerseys, but it just has a flag instead of the team logo.
Interesting.
Which is really funny. But yeah, I don't think I really would. You're right though. Like I don't remember, but I could imagine if you were like an adult at this time and you bought the first one and then a year later you paid full price for the second one, you would probably be like, what is this? Why is it like this? Why is it basically the same game? But you're right. Like now when you can play it for free, it's sort of like, who cares, you know?
It's pretty, you'll just opt for whichever one is better basically. But
yeah.
A lot of the reviews at the time basically said like, if you don't have the previous one, you should get this. If you have it, you don't need to. And I think even IGN gave it like a 5 or something.
I read that review just before we did this. They gave it a 5.5. Yeah.
And then I believe they gave the Nagano Olympics one a 0.
Amazing. I did not read that, but I'm looking like, if you look at the Wikipedia, it sounds like they just signed a 3-year deal with Wayne. So the idea was we are going to put out a game every year for 3 years. So then, clearly it wasn't their focus. And then by the time they got to the third one, they probably saw reviewers were already shitting on the second one. And they're like, well, what if we just reskin it for the Olympics and try that, see if we can get people to buy it. I know like this game was made by Midway, and obviously they were making NFL Blitz, which was much bigger than this at the time. And this is something that happens a lot with current NHL games as well. So the sort of the premier franchise is just called NHL. It's been made by EA forever. So there's there's iconic years along the way. Like NHL 94 and 95 are both kind of like legendary. NHL 98 is legendary. NHL 03 is legendary. NHL 10, I think, is. And then it's so they're still making them. But the thing is that like hockey games don't sell that well. They really only sell in Canada. obviously there'll be some people in the States and maybe like Sweden and Finland and stuff that buy them, but they don't have worldwide appeal. Sure. So the EA team that works on NHL is super small. And this is something that even the next gen versions of these games go through, is that, with Madden, FIFA, bigger games like that, you do actually see pretty sizable changes from year to year because so many people are buying the game. They want you to keep buying it. NHL is just, the last like 4 iterations of NHL have basically been exactly the same. I buy the new one every year because I play online with my friends. So you need to have the new one to do that. But if we didn't play online, we would you could play NHL 21 and you'd notice almost no difference between NHL 21 and NHL 25. And I feel like that's probably exactly what was happening here. Midway was like, we're making NFL Blitz. That's like a license to print money. We're just making a shit ton of money off that. What if we make like an NHL version of this, and then they make this and it's like, oh, we don't pay attention. Who cares?
Right. Yeah, I think that's even like those sort of criticisms of the games not changing is something like even the other sports get lobbed at them. So I can only imagine with hockey, with the smaller teams, it being that way. So at the time you were playing this, but you said GoldenEye kind of put it on the back foot or whatever. But did you ever like fully get into this, or you said there were other hockey games that you were more into?
Well, this one didn't, like I said off the top, this was the only hockey game for the first couple of years of the N64. So the NHL games are going on Super Nintendo up until 98. Like NHL 98 comes out on Super Nintendo only and not on N64. And then NHL 99 is the first one that comes out on N64. So these kind of had the market domination. If you wanted to play a hockey game, you had to play this one, which is why I owned 98. But yeah, I never really got fully into it. Like McKenna reading out the game modes or whatever. Like, could you imagine playing an 82 game season of this? Like, that seems impossible.
No.
And because EA, like the thing with NHL is it was a little bit more sim in the gameplay, but it was a lot more sim in the season. Like you could make trades, you could, create players, you could do all these things that, would keep you interested potentially for an 82 game season where it feels like you're sort of managing a team. This one is you're just playing 82 games in a row, which is mental. So yeah, I definitely never got into it on that sort of like level in a way that I would have with NHL, where I would have been excited to draft my own team, be able to do all the roster management stuff. Yeah, that would have been much more exciting for sure than this is. Even
like you mentioned all those modes, but it still feels like kind of, you mentioned it, like you don't have any of that management and stuff. Like the fact that there is like the previous year when we played that, it's kind of limited in what you can really do with it, but it was a fun game, so it was easy to get over that, especially because I didn't have that frame of reference of like oh, the NHL games have this, it was just like a fun arcade hockey game, and I got into it. But then when you come to this one, I was expecting like, okay, maybe there'll be like a new mode or something that'll make me want to play it more than a couple arcade sessions or something, and it felt like kind of lacking in stuff to do other than play a crap ton of games.
One thing I was thinking about, especially since we're doing 2 sports games, is like doing a tournament or like a full season mode of something might be fun if like that was maybe the only thing I was into, and I spread it out over a long period of time. But I was also thinking like some of these games take up a lot of memory. Yes. And it's like, okay, if I want to play a full season over time, like I can't really play a lot of other games with that memory.
I forgot what this game is, but I'm pretty sure that FIFA, like it takes up like a whole memory pack to save. So you have to have like one that's dedicated specifically for that game, and they're like, I forgot how much they are, but it adds up when you're trying to have a bunch of games.
Yeah.
I think they were like $30, right? Like they weren't cheap.
Yeah,
but I definitely had that. I had probably 3 controller packs growing up, because I would, exactly that. It'd be like, okay, well, that one has my FIFA save on it, and then that one has my WWE No Mercy save on it, or WWF No Mercy save on it, and then that one is like all the other games I have where the save files are only like 3 megabytes or whatever.
Something, yeah.
yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I could see that. You don't want to invest like a long-term plan in any of these. I played a little bit more on FIFA and some of the other games, like some of the what do you call them? Some of the like career, the league modes or season modes or whatever. But yeah, I didn't get into that too much here. I always thought too, like those type of mechanics of like managing your teams and stuff, like I like to see them in the games, but they're probably something I'm never gonna engage with. It always, like, I could see like, oh, if I was really into this, like I would probably really like this, but it's never something that registers with me necessarily. But I wonder with this game, this game, I feel like in general, like there's like, you can play simulation or arcade, so it's like if you want, you can like try to play something that more resembles like actual hockey, but I got the sense that it didn't work. For me, it really mostly worked as arcade. Like, how did you play this, John?
Oh yeah, if you're playing simulation mode on this, something's broken in your brain. Like,
okay,
because it's just not, because the problem is like the simulation mode adds offside and icing, and the AI in this game is not designed. Like, offside in hockey is a pretty like bang bang play. It's like if you cross the blue line with the puck and your opponent is in the zone, like the way the physics of the game are, like the physics of the puck, how fast the players move, how much the game goes end to end. Adding offsides to that is just a nightmare. It's like the AI is not, like, AI in future NHL games recognizes like, okay, if you dump the puck in and they're in an offside position, they will tag up and they'll come back outside the blue line and then go back in. This game is just like, no, they're in there. You're just offside. Too bad. And icing too. Like, yeah, this game is not meant for simulation mode at all. Like, it would be crazy if you were trying to play this in sim mode. And it was funny reading the IGN review, kind of being like, complaining about the simulation mode. And I'm just like, I don't think anyone played this on like, I know when you're a reviewer, you have to encompass the whole game, but they were kind of talking like simulation mode is sort of the core of this game, and it's not very good. And it's like, I don't remember anybody playing simulation mode on this at all.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that, because there's some like with football games, for example, like since I'm also not really into that, I always prefer like Blitz and stuff, but I can see why people like get into Madden. I've played a little bit. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But like, yeah, playing this, like both of these modes, I was like, I can't imagine anyone enjoying this, at least this specific simulation mode. I could see maybe like they've probably got that figured out by now. I assume that's what most of the NHL games are like now, right? They're more okay.
100%. I mean, there is still like, I would say NHL kind of does the same thing that a lot of the other EA games do, which is like, yes, it is more simulation. It looks more like a hockey game, but you can score a lot, and you can still have like, you know, you can still, it's fun. Like the games know that you don't want to play a 1-0 game. So, you know, so there is still like a level of, oh, that would never happen in real hockey or whatever, but it's for the best. Totally. But yeah, having a simulation mode on this feels like putting a simulation mode on Mario Kart.
yeah.
It's like,
totally.
No one wants like realistic driving in Mario Kart. Like, oh, you can turn on sim mode, and then you know, you have to race in first person, and you gotta, you know, it's like Gran Turismo but Mario Kart. Like nobody was looking for that. It's kind of the same thing in this. Like, even because I am a hardcore hockey fan, and even then I cannot imagine taking this game and being like, I need this to look more like real hockey, because it just doesn't. Right from the outset, it does. Like, even the announcer's just like, we're ready for a great game of hockey. Like, he's, you know, No one is like, oh, this is really I got to turn all the settings on I can in this thing.
Oh
like,
yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Icing's got to be on, all that stuff. I like that they give you those. They let you tweak the different rules at least. But okay, I'm glad you sort of answered that, because I was wondering, like, I don't think this game provides for like the real hockey fan, and that might be, maybe its flaws that it like tries to have that stuff, but it's not. We played some sim modes and it was pretty miserable.
I decided, like, I'm gonna try to play a little bit of the season mode, and I'm like a minute in, and I'm like, what is happening? What? I don't know what icing is, but I'm playing for like 5 seconds, and then a penalty is being called.
Yeah, like having penalties in this game where you can body check guys like literally across the ice surface doesn't.
No.
Like what is tripping? Why do we have this? Yeah, no, you're so right. It's the same with Blitz, right? Like what? I don't know if Blitz had a simulation mode, but like why would it? That's not what the game is. There's other games that are doing more of a sim mode. So you don't need this to have that. I don't know. Yeah, very very perplexing that's even something that was included.
And we played some 4-player with our friends, and we at first did sim, and that was a mistake, because when you have that many people, it's sometimes like your character gets off screen or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're like offsides or something, and you don't even notice it, and it's really hard to like keep track of that. So you got to go arcade mode. You got to go arcade size rink too. I think like it's way too big, and also I feel like maybe this isn't as much of a factor if you're having fun, but like the length of like the periods feel kind of long for that style of game too. Like I think it's like 5 minutes or something in the regular simulation mode, or close to that. It's like it's actually maybe a little too short in arcade mode. It's like a minute and a half.
Yeah, I think there's a few. You could make it like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I don't know what the default was.
Yeah, but it does actually give you like good options in customizing like the rules of the game and stuff. So I appreciate that. You don't have to suffer through simulation mode, or you can have penalties on, but like icing and offsides off. I think that might be an admission that they're like, okay, we kind of fucked this up a little bit, so let's take it out or something. But yeah, you want to keep off penalties so you can start the fights though. That's like half the fun, I think, is like actually getting into a brawl. I don't know. Do you prefer like that? And you're okay. Gotta have the fights.
Well, I'm curious, because you two actually got to play it with friends. Like the one main thing I was thinking to myself when I was playing it for this pod is I was like, I don't know if I ever really played this by myself. Like I'm sure I did at times, but yeah, I definitely never ran like a full season or even that mode where it's like the eliminator, you just got to beat all the other teams, or like, I don't think I ever did that. Like, I think this was very much, I had my neighbor friends over and we would play multiplayer, and I can remember multiplayer being a lot of fun. Did you two have that experience, like when you were playing with your friends, that it just like it made the game exponentially better?
Yeah, this is something I said. I was like, I am not that into this in single player. It's way more fun multiplayer. It's definitely not a game I would choose to play single player.
I kind of like it in all its forms, to be honest. Like out in arcade mode. Like I like a game that gives us that option, because it was fun to play with our friends, but we often do, especially in like sports games, we'll do like us versus the computer, because we're not really like, we're not competitive with each other necessarily. Like, it's not fun for you. So like, but if we can team up against the game or whatever.
Even if I'm
Babe, do you want
you.
me to beat your ass in this game tonight? Because I can definitely do that if that's how you want to spend our Friday.
Even when it's me,
there's some
destroying
games.
you, I'm like, I don't like this.
We were playing this one fighting game, and we did one mode where it's like you get 5 characters and like you fight, and like, it's elimination, and she swept me. I didn't even take out, and she kept the same health, and I just could not do it because I'm not. We're both bad at fighting games, but she was like kicking my ass, and I was like, this is incredible, and she was like, can I stop playing this game now, please? So yeah, when we can play, at least team up and win, like we're high five and we're feeling good. It's fun, yeah. But and then solo, I didn't do it as much with this game because we got a lot. We focused more on the multiplayer, but the previous year I actually did play like a handful. I played like a season. I didn't actually complete it, but I was like playing a season of the original game because I do actually just really enjoy like the basic gameplay of this. And it's also at one of our local-ish arcades we go to. They have a arcade cabinet of it, and I'll always play it there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, nice. This is really, I've never really been into like hockey games. I just really haven't had much opportunity to play them. So for me, this is like, I don't have much to compare it to, but I find it a very satisfying, like, it does give me the same feeling as playing like Blitz or something like that. Like just a arcade, like there's like a handful of buttons, but you really only need to know like 2 or 3 to succeed.
Yeah,
you
totally.
know?
Yeah, I would say, like, you know, as someone who's played virtually every hockey game there is, this is probably the best non-NES game for that type of audience that, like, and I don't even think this game is necessarily good. But I think, you know, pretty much, so 2K did NHL up until 05, I think. So for a while there was, competition between 2K and EA in NHL games, but then basically it's been an EA monopoly for the last 20 years, and there hasn't really been a good hockey game to come out of, anywhere else. But NES has 2 games, Blades of Steel and Ice Hockey,
okay.
That are both a little more arcadey and are very, very fun. But other than that, I would say after those 2, this is definitely the best game for like a casual hockey fan, I would say, just in terms of, like you said, very easy to pick up and play, very satisfying to score, and you really don't need to know how hockey functions. Like the EA games, if you play hockey and you know how hockey functions, it's easier to play it. Like you understand how do I deke out the goalie? This is a way I would deke out the goalie. How do I do, one-timers are like a big deal. I know I have to learn how to do those, whatever. Whereas like this, you can kind of just pick it up, and probably the first game you ever play, you'll score 6 or more goals. So you're already going to be like, this is cool. I'm smashing these guys all over the ice. I'm scoring goals. This is great. And there really hasn't been anything like it since then, I wouldn't say.
The easy mode on it is truly like pretty easy too. That's one thing we've ran into with certain games. We'll try out and we'll try it on easy, and we just get our asses handed to us still. So I appreciated that like it was pretty approachable as like a newcomer. Mm-hmm. Where like we could probably bump the difficulty a little bit, except that I played against our pal Moss, and he was too good at it. Yeah, we'll have to try the NES games because we have a lot of success with NES games because they are much more. I mean, there is literally only 2 buttons, so the game either works or it doesn't usually.
Ice hockey fucking rules. Like I love ice hockey still to this day. It was like a Nintendo. Like, on NES, Nintendo was just doing a lot of sports games. Like there was just like golf, tennis, baseball. And then so this was ice hockey, and you play with 4-person teams, and you get to like customize your teams. So it makes it feel really good. Like, so you have 4 players, and before each game, each player can be skinny, medium, or fat. So skinny... So skinny is really fast, but they get knocked over easily and they have a weak shot. And then medium is kind of like in the middle. And then fat is like they're really good at hitting. They have a really good shot, but they're slow. So there's like a strategy to setting your lineup for like maximum success. Wow. And yeah, that was like a thing growing up. It'd be like, how do you play ice hockey? Like... I'm sort of a classic 1 fat 3 skinnies, but people have different modes. Sometimes I'll go 2 fat 2 skinny depending. Mediums are like you play against someone if they had any mediums on their team, you're like that.
It's over. Wow.
I'm gonna walk you, but it's very very fun. So I would start there. Ice hockey, very very fun.
The object of the game is to score as many goals as possible to beat the opponent. Same as regular hockey.
Is there anything else you had about this game, McKenna, before we go to FIFA?
I don't think so.
Yeah. It's it's cool. Okay, and John, any other thoughts or things for?
I think we covered it all. Let's talk soccer.
All right, McKenna, tell us about FIFA Road to World Cup '98.
All right. FIFA Road to World Cup '98 is a soccer game sequel to FIFA 64 and the 5th overall game in the FIFA series. Game modes include friendly, league, practice, penalty shootout, and the robust Road to World Cup, which emulates the World Cup France '98. All 32 World Cup qualifying teams plus 8 extra are included, along with official World Cup France stadiums. Teams must go through a qualifying round as well as a first round and a final round. Winning the World Cup will unlock Classics mode, which features 8 World Cup final matches from 1930 to 1982. Friendly and league modes contain even more teams and leagues. '98 is the first FIFA game to include a player and team editor, as well as to properly implement the offsides rule. There's an indoor soccer mode, which was included in FIFA 97, but not in the FIFA 64 version. FIFA 98 is also the first Nintendo 64 game to feature licensed music.
Yeah, another first for us is that was incredible when we fired up the game and that started happening. I was like, oh my god, I can't believe this. Yeah, John, are you a big Blur fan?
Oh, sure. Of
Hell
course.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a moment. I think you're right. Like you don't expect these games of this time period to have licensed music. So I had the same reaction because I have played this game before, but I'd completely forgot about that. So when it's booting up and song 2 starts playing, I was like, whoa, cool. Hell yeah.
It also has, in the menus and stuff, it has some music from the Crystal Method, I believe, which they came out. So that was really cool. Yeah, because I mean, I like we've covered some sports games like Wave Race or International Superstar Soccer where they have like their own original music, and I actually kind of like that aesthetic. I'm a little bit I'm sad that that's kind of gone away because it's all licensed music now in these. Not that I really play a lot of sports games, but at the same time I understand it, and I also appreciate that because that's how I discovered a lot of music that I got into as a kid would be through like, Tony Hawk or games like that. So yeah, I don't know, it was awesome. And like song 2 was like literally came out that year as well, so it was like I don't know. I mean, I guess that's what they usually do, but it felt so fresh, especially compared to the previous FIFA 64 that we had played. Have you played FIFA 64, John?
It's an abject disaster.
Okay.
Yes, I have played it. It's so bad. Like, it's crazy how bad it is. So yes, I have played it, and I actually, true fact about FIFA 98, I was starting to get into soccer, and So FIFA 98 is really bad, and then it's FIFA 64, right? That's the
64,
first.
yeah.
Sorry, I keep saying 98. FIFA 64, the first one. I remember buying it used because I'd never played it, but I was like starting to get into soccer, and I was like, oh, I want to try to, maybe I'll get a soccer video game. And so I bought it, and it was so bad that I told them it was broken. Like I brought it back and I was like, this game doesn't actually work. So I
understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. And they gave me one. So that was nice. But yes, I have played it, to answer your question.
Okay. Cause yeah, I was gonna tell you like, oh, we'll talk a little bit about this, but then I figured I didn't even want you to have to think about playing that game or thinking about it. We've covered like 30 something games so far, and it's probably in our bottom like 5. It's like, there's a couple games that are definitely worse than it, but that's saying a lot, I think. It's kind of different this compared to Wayne Gretzky, like, where it's like this, we're seeing like a massive
major glow up,
yeah. Okay, so we've talked about it before. You played soccer when you were younger, and like your family is kind of into soccer a little bit. I don't watch it or anything. John, you said you're into it. Do you still follow it?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. I kind of shifted at this time was when I was starting to get into soccer, because this was like the David Beckham era, and Manchester United was really good. And so they would always be on TV in Canada. They used to have this show on TSN, which is like our version of ESPN, called Soccer Saturday. And they would air like a soccer game on Saturday mornings. And I just kind of got into it through that. So yeah, I was a big, this was like the era where I started to become a soccer fan, and these video games like Road to World Cup 98 and then also World Cup 98, like they do make a licensed game of the World Cup as well after this one. And yeah, they became like a big part of my life. I've never played soccer. I'm a pretty good athlete, but I'm horrible at soccer. But yeah, followed European soccer for quite a long time. And then I had seasons tickets to the Vancouver Whitecaps in the MLS for 5 or 6 years. So I got really into MLS. So that's mostly what I follow now is just like the Whitecaps. And then the Canada national team is very good for like the first time in my entire life.
Oh, great.
Like the men's national team, I should say. The women's team has been good forever. But so I watch a lot of the men's and women's national teams for soccer also.
Okay, cool. You mentioned David Beckham. He is on the cover for this game. I think the PlayStation version and the Saturn version. Do you know who was on the Nintendo 64? We had Roy Lassiter. Are you familiar?
Okay, yeah, I know Roy Lassiter, but that's hilarious that he's on the cover over Beckham. That's yeah.
Yeah, it's why. I mean, this is one where you see like in France it was David Ginola, Raul in Spain and Portugal, and Paolo Maldini in Italy, Andreas Moeller and Andreas Moeller in Germany.
For Germany, yeah.
So okay, yeah, that's crazy.
That was a normal FIFA strategy. So what they would do for a long time after this, a very normal FIFA strategy was the cover would have 3 players on it, and 2 of the players would be on every cover. So usually they would like have the players running, like there'd be one guy running this way, one guy running the other way. And then in the middle, they'd have like someone running at you. And the guy in the middle would be the region. So like the US game might have Landon Donovan in the middle, and then the England game would have Wayne Rooney in the middle, and the Portuguese game would have Cristiano Ronaldo in the middle or whatever. So that was like a FIFA strategy they did a lot, was one of the cover athletes would change based on the region the game was sold in.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that makes sense. That only makes sense. So, I mean, there's a wide amount of like the covers, but also like, you talked about how there was like with hockey, there was like the different platforms and stuff to play the game. This game itself came out on so many different platforms, but they're clearly like some of them are completely different games. It had a Windows release, PlayStation, Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn, Mega Drive, Genesis, Super Nintendo, and it was on Game Boy. Which is wild. I mean, clearly you can't even really put the same name on the game, but yeah, we watched some of the footage of that and we're like, okay, clearly it's not clearly not the same. But
I would just imagine that the FIFA license probably cost so much that they were just like, we're going to make as many games as possible out of this. That's the way I would read it. And the World Cup license, because I believe those are probably separate licenses, or like you pay FIFA extra money to have the World Cup, you know, like branding or whatever. So yeah.
So you said like you're playing. Was this like the premier thing at the time? Because it seems like your options for like soccer games are a little bit more. It's like seems more diverse, which makes sense. But like we're comparing it to like we played FIFA last year, which wasn't great, but then we also played International Superstar Soccer 64, and that was a phenomenal game. So I was wondering, like,
it's excellent. It's excellent. Yeah. So for a long time, there was like a schism in soccer games where, so you had International Superstar Soccer and FIFA for a long time. Those were the two. And then I don't think it was made. Oh, I got balloons.
Happy birthday!
Because I gave a peace sign. I guess
was that AI?
Okay,
oh no, that's scary.
Yeah. This is my favorite one, I think.
Oh my gosh!
Anyway, people can't see this, so who cares? But yeah, I don't even know what I was talking about anymore. Oh yeah, so I don't think it was made by the same people, because Superstar Soccer was made by Konami. Actually, it might be. Hold on, let me.
Yeah,
look it up.
Konami.
So basically, what it was it was Konami. So Konami made they made International Superstar Soccer as a rival to FIFA, and then that turned into Winning 11, which then turned into Pro Evolution Soccer. So there was always these, like, they were always the two rivals. Pro Evolution, they stopped making it in like 2020, I think, is the last one that came out. But that was sort of, Pro Evolution was always like a little bit less arcadey, a little more sim, but they didn't have the license. So you would always have to, or they would get some licenses, but not the whole thing. And FIFA always had all the licenses. So that's the same thing with International Superstar Soccer. Better game, no question. Gameplay better on International Superstar Soccer, but the licensing, especially the World Cup licensing, it makes a pretty big difference, I would say, to the overall enjoyment of the game. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but like, I truly could not believe how deep this game is. Like, it is crazy for N64 how deep, like, the Road to the World Cup mode, it's insane. You can play as like 10 different teams at the same time, or 12 different teams or whatever. And even just like simple things like the team management is very robust, but you also get to do like national selection. So like for England, they had like their main roster, and then there was another group of like 60 players that they just had in the game. If you wanted to swap in Paul Scholes onto the roster, or Nicky Butt, or whoever, you could swap them over, which that to me blew my mind. I couldn't believe they included that. So, you would think for a game of this time period, it was just like, well, here's the England roster. That's all you get. No, you could fully make the team your own. And obviously they don't have that for every team. If you go to Bermuda, you're not going to have like 60 other guys you could pick. Sure. But for the top teams like Germany, Italy, England, France, Brazil, they had a full, like, you got to be the person who decides who plays for the team, which I thought was really wild. You wouldn't have seen this in a game at the time. So that was really impressive to me. That's
crazy. I didn't even realize. I could tell there was a lot of depth to this game, but in ways that I couldn't even really wrap my head around, as more of a, not even a casual fan, just sort of a non-fan. But you were just messing with a little bit of that stuff, McKenna.
Yeah, I kind of looked around a bit. I was pretty amazed at the number of teams that are just in like the friendly and league mode. It's like, okay, you can select England, and you can choose, a lot of the teams you might typically find, Arsenal, Manchester United, whatever. Mm-hmm. But you can also, there's a bunch of other countries too that have, their leagues. Plus you can play as just the national teams.
Yeah, I had a lot of like, again, this is just me more of as a layman in this regard, but I was like, I didn't even know like this country, I guess you can assume somewhere plays soccer, but I was like, oh, crazy. Like, did not expect that.
Yeah, World Cup qualifying starts like 3 years before the actual World Cup for the really small countries. It's like the really small countries kind of all play off against each other to see who might get in to play the big boys or whatever. Like, it's a very, very long process. And yeah, I was blown away by that too, McKenna, because I can remember the World Cup 98 was very limited. World Cup 98 just had the teams that were in the World Cup, and then I think like a handful more, whereas this one was like, well, it's the Road to the World Cup. Theoretically, any of these teams could be in the World Cup. So yeah, if you want to play as Martinique, go ahead, have fun, when we have the roster for them and stuff. So yeah, that was very mind-blowing to me. I couldn't believe the number of choices you had, and all of the like qualification being accurate as well, in terms of, this is because every federation qualifies teams differently for the World Cup. So having all of that stuff baked into it was really mind-blowing. And I didn't remember it. That was like going through it, I was like, holy shit, like this game really had a lot of had a lot of stuff in it. It was very mind-blowing.
That's sort of how I learned that, because I never know. Like, every time the World Cup happens, I just hear like, okay, the World Cup's going on. I'm like, all right. But yeah, when you're in that mode and you can like sort through everyone's schedule, I was like, it was like a light bulb over my head or something. Well, I didn't think of anything, but I learned like, whoa, like they have a totally different system and everything, and that makes it all the more cool to me that happens that way. That's just sweet about soccer to me in general, but cool. Yeah. What, in terms of comparing it to the previous game, like we said it was much better, but what did you notice, McKenna, like playing it compared to the last year?
It responds to your button inputs.
Okay, yeah. Maybe that's, yeah, we could just make, I guess, blanket say like
we can start there.
I can play it.
yeah, exactly.
It plays really well. Yeah.
I mean, more than that, it's enjoyable. I enjoyed playing.
It was fun. Yeah.
The vibes are better. 64 was just kind of blah.
Yeah, I mean, the vibes, we already mentioned when you start up and all the music, but when you're just like menuing and stuff, it even just feels cooler. I like the little addition actually in the menu of when you can hit C down to like select that sub menu. It was a little convoluted, but it was kind of sweet. It felt like futuristic. But yeah, then actually playing, like there's different fields and
there's way more options. Stadium select, weather select. I mentioned the indoor soccer, which
that's the way to play.
Which
for
I
me.
saw
that was
was
fun.
in 97, but just not in the 64 version. But that was really fun. I love indoor soccer, and it was fun to play it in a game. It's like a super arcadey feeling.
I think that's why I
mode.
like that even more. So yeah.
They have the goal celebrations.
Okay.
Just like doing all kinds of doing flips and airplanes, and
that was a great thing that I liked in International Superstar Soccer. That was cool to see back. Yeah. Vibes are better. Gameplay is just it's not quite as like fluid or whatever and smooth, I think, as International Superstar Soccer. And since I don't have as much of a like affiliation with like the real teams or anything, I would probably prefer to play that. Actually, I mean, I played some of the Road to World Cup mode, but it is so many matches in a way that
it's so long,
which I appreciate, but I actually found myself getting more into the sort of like season mode in International Superstar Soccer, because I sort of liked in that they had like team management where your certain players will be like, they'll have like the sad face and you'd have to like swap them out and stuff, and that was fun to do. Because like the more in-depth team management stuff where you like set up your formations and things like that was too much for me, but I could handle like sad face, happy face, you know.
This guy's tired, this guy's energetic.
And I liked you could rename all the players in that one. I renamed them after like all our friends and stuff. But this has some fun customization, like I
was just making a uniform,
making like your team colors
picking the
and
colors.
Stuff.
Yeah, that's fun.
That was pretty fun. Yeah. And I think
Superstar Soccer realized like we don't have the license, but
you can,
if we let you change the player names, anybody can be anybody.
Yeah, that was good.
Number 7 on England's character model looks an awful lot like David Beckham. I wonder if I could just put in the name David Beckham and feel like I'm playing as him. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, as someone who was getting into soccer at this time, and also just like over the years, like FIFA is one of the games I've put the most hours into. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater franchise is number 1 with a bullet, but then FIFA might be number 2 for me. It really was a game for a number of years I played so many hours of. And yeah, there is just something about having the license and having the real uniforms, the real players. It just makes a big difference. And I feel like even if you were really into international superstar soccer, that, you know, you just love a gimmick. You love this is England and it's all the guys from England that I like. There just is something about it that the gameplay gap is not large enough, in my opinion, where you would feel like, I just can't play this because superstar soccer is that much better. You know, I feel like this one is close enough and it's got all the little bells and whistles in it. And even the commentary too, like fact that you're getting Des Lynam, John Motson, and Andy Gray, like they are the three main guys in England at the time, and you're getting them in this game too. You're getting Song 2, you know, it's just like all the little bells and whistles, I feel like meant a lot to me when I was this age, for sure.
The sound in general was good, like the presentation, like the crowd noise and stuff, in a way that it wasn't in the previous one. But
I was gonna just go a little more on the offsides rule. I don't remember if it was correct in ISS, but I do remember playing another soccer game, and there was an offsides call. I think it happened multiple times, and I had the ball, and I was like, I haven't passed the ball yet. Why are they calling offsides? And I was like, why is this happening? So it was exciting to see that, you know, it waits to call the offsides until the ball has been passed towards that player.
Yeah, I think that was probably in FIFA 64 that was happening. Yeah.
It was also just this one, though, still messed up a little bit, where like you wouldn't be passing directly to that player and they would call it offside, which maybe in 98 they didn't have passive offside yet. So there's like the rule in soccer now is like you can be in an offside position as long as the ball is not played to you or you don't affect the play at all. A different person can score while you're in an offside position, but that didn't used to be the case. It used to be if the ball was played towards anyone and someone was in an offside position, it wouldn't count. So maybe that was the rule back then. But yeah, there were times where, like, for example, on a goal kick, the goalie would kick it and it'd go all the way into your own half and you would head the ball just like a pass, just like back towards the other half, and it'd be like offside. And you're like, well, I wasn't playing it to that guy. Like, what's going on? But so that was a little frustrating. But yeah, other than that, I think they nailed it. And I think the presentation thing that really got me, and I don't know if this is in ISS, I can't remember. I haven't played that in forever, but was just some of the camera angles really made it feel like a TV presentation. And the one in particular, which this will sound kind of crazy, but when they would blow the whistle for halftime, they would show the camera angle from the corner of the stadium with the players walking off the pitch, like towards the dressing rooms. And that is such a TV angle of soccer. I just like that that one blew me away. I was like, whoa. Like, that looks like TV. In 97, if you were playing this game, I feel like that would have been almost close to mind-blowing.
Yeah.
You've got the commentators, and then you're getting these camera angles that really have nothing to do with a video game, but look so much like what you would see on TV. I feel like that would have really added to the experience back then.
Yeah, I actually like there is like a lot of variety too in terms of like the gameplay camera angles and stuff, which is cool, which we didn't really mess around with too much. We just kind of kept it the standard one, but I think that's really cool. Like, I watched some clips people had where they were playing it a completely different way, and I was like, oh, it was kind of more fun to watch those than it was to play, but I apprecited that. And
I did really like when you'd have like a penalty kick, the camera went behind the player, and you could position where your kick was gonna go, how far, how much power you put into it.
I feel like I understood it more in this game than like any of the games, like what I was doing in those moments. Yeah, I also of like camera angle stuff or camera stuff, like the instant replay I thought was really good in this. We had that a little bit in some of the games, but this was like one where you could control it a little bit more, and we just in general had a lot of moments where I wanted to pull out my camera and capture like the instant replay. The physics of the game are sometimes a little bit more like loosey-goosey or something compared to any of the other games we've played, but it led to a lot more like fun moments of like the ball going off somewhere crazy or rebounding, scoring in like a funny way. I had some really funny like own goals happen to the other team, but also some really cool like moments of scoring.
I did feel like I don't know if this was just coincidental, but I did feel like it was more likely if it hit the goalpost that I could actually score. Like it might go in. Whereas I felt like if I hit the goalpost in the other, at least 64, that it would just go off somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. I had plenty of moments like that where it kind of would, bounce around there and you could actually like get in, which felt good. It feels good when you do that. And then, I'm reaching for my phone to film my little CRT TV, hoping that it'll capture it right. But, we had a lot of fun moments like that. We also got to play that with our friends. And that was a lot of fun. And we didn't have the issue. We didn't have too many penalty issues like we mentioned with Wayne Gretzky. Though I do want to mention our friend Miranda, who we played with, was like really aggressive player. She only did like the slides to try to take you out, and she probably got like half her team red carded. So we
love it.
Yeah, we didn't have too much of a hard time beating them after that. But it was really funny. It was really funny that she kept doing that.
This game has one of my favorite features, which they ended up getting rid of by like, I want to say FIFA 04, 05, but you can slide tackle the goalie when they're holding the ball, which there's something very satisfying about that. I don't know why, but it is very satisfying. This game, however, I was a little disappointed because World Cup 98, which you two will get to, but it's the only FIFA game I can remember. It has a dive button. Oh. So if the computer slide tackles near you, but they miss you, you can dive and the ref will call it like a free kick or a penalty. But if you do the dive and no one's around you, it's an automatic yellow card.
Whoa.
So you really have to be careful about timing it. But if you time it right, you can do things like kind of walk up to a defender, see that they're about to slide tackle you, kind of turn away from them a little bit and then hit the dive button. And then the ref might give them a yellow card or whatever. Like it's super fun. And I can see why they never included it in any other game, because you don't really want to encourage kids to be like, I'm diving all over the place. But it's so fun.
I think that must have been what happened. You know, when we were trying to figure out if we could like head the ball off of like a goal kick or something. So I was just pressing like the C buttons when they were happening. And at one point I got a yellow card and I could not figure out why. I was like, I wasn't near a player.
Oh, there might be like C right or something might have been like dive, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's in this one. I think it's only in World Cup 98, but maybe you slide tackled someone standing near you. Like off screen.
I definitely did that a few times. Like I accidentally slide tackled the goalie because I didn't realize that you could do it. And I only was encouraged to do, speaking of like kind of the wonky physics, there was a time where the opposing goalie was going to kick it down the field, and I was standing right in front of them, like mashing the B button, and right as they kicked the ball, it like bounced off of me and it went into the goal, which I was like, that would not be allowed, I don't think, in normal soccer for someone to just crowd the goalie like that. But then I thought that was a legitimate strategy for the game. But then I slid tackled. I didn't know you could do that, so it wasn't my fault.
Yeah, I think in this one, slide tackling the goalie is an auto red, but there were later, like I played FIFA 02 a great deal, and if you slide tackled the goalie, sometimes it would be a yellow and sometimes it would be a red, so you'd just like roll the dice if you just really wanted to have a fun time and slide tackle them.
It's worth the risk, I think.
Oh, 100%. It's so nothing better than the goalie making a good save and you being like, fuck you, and just slide tackling them.
I think the one thing I'm disappointed about the game, and it's only when you read this paragraph because I didn't know it was the thing, was I'm really interested in the World Cup mode or Classics mode where you could play the old games. I'm kind of disappointed that that's locked behind winning the World Cup, because that means you have to play like a crazy amount of games to unlock it. And that was something we felt like was sort of missing, because we played International Superstar Soccer, and that had scenarios where you'd play parts of games based off of real life classic games, and that was so cool. Like, that was, for me, it was like kind of educational, and it was a unique mode to get into. And so I would love to do that sort of thing, but you have to beat like how many that's like a crazy amount of games.
Yeah.
I would love to try it someday.
Yeah. They had it in World Cup 98, and it's awesome. There's like a bunch of scenarios, and then like they have a different commentator. So they brought in like the English commentator who was like the main guy in the 60s and 70s, but he only does those classic games. And they have like classic uniforms, the classic soccer balls. If you play the like 1930 games, it's in like sepia tone.
What?
Wow.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Oh my.
It's very, very cool. So you'll get to enjoy that when you get to World Cup 98, because it's more robust in that one, and it's very fun.
Something to look forward to. That's cool. One other note I had on the multiplayer, and kind of to the openness of the game, or like the options to do things. I like that in the league modes, Road to World Cup or whatever, when you're going into a game, I like that you can have as many people play, like up to 4, and they can play on whatever you could play against your team even, but that made it really fun, because I was playing some of the mode, the Road to World Cup mode, and then when our friends visited, I said to Cal, I was like, oh, you want to play like a game with me, like against, help me on my World Cup path. And I like that idea that as many people as you want can sort of jump in. Otherwise, I don't know, John, do you have any other thoughts about this game, or anything you want to talk about?
Really blew me away. I'm just looking now at the Wikipedia, and I see that like someone from Kotaku in 2023 said that this was the best sports video game of all time, just because of it includes so much stuff, like having the futsal mode, having the Road to World Cup, the World Cup Classics mode. Like, their kind of argument is like, every time EA puts out a game, there's always like something from a past game you want that they've taken away, or they like add this thing you don't really want. And so it's by Luke Plunkett, but his whole sort of thesis is like, this is the one sports game that kind of gave you everything. Like, you got the Road to the World Cup, but then you could actually play the real World Cup, because in future years they would do Road to the World Cup, but you didn't play the World Cup itself, because they wanted to sell you the World Cup video game also. So you would play Road to the World Cup, and it would just be, the end of the game was, you've qualified your team for the World Cup. And then that was it. You couldn't play the actual World Cup itself. So he was just like, this game gave you everything. And EA kind of has a reputation for not doing that. So that was really my main takeaway, is just kind of like screwing around with the game today and just thinking, again, like, I don't think the gameplay was as good. Like, FIFA games would get so much better. It's clearly, to me, lagging behind International Superstar Soccer. But in terms of like the modes and just everything you get, especially for an N64 game, that was really my main takeaway. Like, it really just blew me away how much stuff was packed into this game, especially when you juxtapose it with Wayne Gretzky, which is like, here's one game mode. There's no real jerseys. Most of the players don't even have scanned faces. There's like 2 game modes. That's it. It made for a really stark contrast, I would say. Yeah,
the only thing it has over this is you can't read Wayne Gretzky's career stats in this game, which is such an important feature.
So true. The Pele's stats are not in this Road to the World Cup game. They really blew it.
Beyond skill, beyond passion, beyond desire, beyond belief, beyond heroes and villains and goal after goal. Beyond all this, there's France 98. FIFA Road to World Cup 98 from EA Sports. Qualify your country with the best FIFA game ever. If it's in the game, EA Sports, it's in the game.
Definitely a big step up from the previous year. Definitely. I'm glad we don't even now. I feel like this is coming. It's kind of like cleanse the palate a little bit. Like we don't like it's always been. We've been talking like, oh yeah, ISS, a lot of fun, way better than that other game. Now we don't even have to think about it anymore. We can move on.
Fun to do a sequel episode.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with sports games, that's going to be like the main way we.
Like after the first year, everything is.
It'll be that.
Like, there'll be a few new.
Majora's Mask.
We haven't played baseball yet.
No, we have not played a single baseball game yet. We've played 3 soccer games, 2 hockey games, basketball, bunch of racing games.
Trying to think if there was an iconic baseball game for N64. I'm not sure that there was.
I think
like Super Nintendo had Ken Griffey Jr. That's Super Nintendo though.
I think they did.
I think they did an N64 one too, but it's not as good. I mean, the
Okay.
Super Nintendo one is legendary.
So
yeah, I don't think, because Super Nintendo had so many, and even Nintendo, you had like the RBI baseball franchise, the Bases Loaded franchise. You even had like Mutant League baseball, Ken Griffey Jr., like really fun. I feel like N64 didn't have an iconic. Maybe MVP Baseball had a really good year on N64. I can't remember.
We are approaching
that,
one in 98. We're going to have All-Star Baseball 99 coming.
Okay.
Yeah, but
yeah, MVP Baseball was after the N64. So All-Star Baseball, what did you say it was?
99, but it came out in
1999.
98, obviously. But
oh yeah, I remember this one's got Larry Walker on the cover.
Okay.
I don't know if that was Canada only because he is Canadian, but I think he's on all of it.
Oh,
I don't remember any of those games being good, but maybe I'm totally wrong. I don't know. All-Star Baseball. I feel like I never played these.
I like the Wikipedia photo is the Game Boy cover, so maybe it made more waves on Game Boy.
Okay, it's got pretty good ratings. IGN gave it an 8.2, Nintendo Power gave it an 8.1, GameSpot 8.3. So okay, so maybe All-Star Baseball was decent, and I just don't remember it because I'm dumb or whatever. But
well,
good luck with that. Good luck with your baseball times.
We're almost there, sort of, but our next, I should say, what's coming next for our next month? We've got a 2-pack of Chameleon Twist and Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero. I don't know if you've played either of those games, John, but
no.
It's
is the Mortal Kombat one is it like a side scroller where you only play as Sub-Zero? Okay, I feel like I remember that happening and people being like, "This is not what we want."
Spoilers a little bit. It's horrible, but it's it's gonna be fun to talk about because it's kind of funny how bad it is actually. We'll get into it. McKenna doesn't have that same sort of enjoyment from bad games, but cool. John, thank you so much for coming on the show and everything. Is there anything you want to promote?
Thank you for having me. This was a blast. Always love talking about sort of my, my golden era of gaming. I mean, you did a nice job summarizing everything off the top of the show, but, I think if people are big nostalgia heads, then most likely the project you'd like the most is the POD cast. I do that every month with Brian Quinby. We review a classic nu metal album. If you don't know what nu metal is, think like Korn, Limp Bizkit, Deftones, Linkin Park, bands like that. It's been going for over 5 years at this point. So we've got a pretty good back catalog there. And it's a ton of fun. I mean, if you know Brian, he's a great podcaster, and we have a lot of fun on that show. So yeah, if this is a show you like, you will probably also like the POD cast. It's a great time. It's POD cast with a K, like the band Korn. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. And and then you said I have a Jeopardy podcast. If for some reason you're listening to this and you're a big Jeopardy fan, it's the only comedy podcast about Jeopardy. Emily Heller and I do a show every week where we recap the previous week of Jeopardy in a fun and funny fashion. And people seem to really like that one too. So that's called What is a Jeopardy Podcast? And you can find that also wherever you get your pods.
I can't recommend either show enough. Like, I would like to have you on to talk about some of those subjects too, because
sure,
nu metal, it actually, like, the period of its prominence almost perfectly aligns with the lifespan of the Nintendo 64.
100%, almost exactly. Yeah, I mean, it kind of starts with Korn's self-titled in 94, so a little bit before, but its heyday is kind of like 97, 98. and then it's over by like 2002.
Yep.
So pretty much same thing as Nintendo 64.
Almost
Yeah, 100%.
perfectly. Yeah, I love that show too. PODcast is such a great show, and we're only a few months away from Jeopardy for the N64, and I feel like if you would want to come back on, you would be the perfect guest for that. So
I'm ready. I would love to. Yeah,
awesome.
I believe I do have a history with Jeopardy on the N64. I believe I owned it and played it. So would love to go back and would love to answer a bunch of questions from that are way outdated.
Oh,
so,
that's a good idea. Okay, we'll have to pull some too. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be super fun. Yeah, ones that just are not true anymore at all.
That's
love
been
that for us.
Well, we'll have some stories with that because we play it a lot on the NES, but we'll save that for the show. Yeah, it's a big staple of one of our friend groups hangouts.
Yeah.
So we're excited to get to that. But and also I guess to just reveal a little bit about that game is actually flanked in the timeline by 2 hockey games. So maybe we can work something out here. Yeah.
Wow, we're going deep. I love it. I love it.
Well, yeah. Thank you again so much for coming on. This is a fun episode, and thanks everyone for listening. Check out all our stuff below. We got Patreon and all that garbage. I'm bad at promoting that stuff. Just go check it out. All right. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
That's the end of the game.